Live stream's on. Go. Live stream's on.
Okay, thank you everybody. My name is Coy and I'm part of the Rabbit Hole leadership. I just want to thank everyone again for coming out today. We're about to jump into our panel, which will be moderated by Christopher Lafayette, who is the founder of the Armada. And on the panel will be Mayan Shea, product manager at Meta, Lucas Risotto, CEO and founder of Where Thoughts Go, Maddie Callender, director of operations at Boost VC, and Pearly Chen, chief of staff to the CEO of HTC Vive. So please welcome the panel to the stage now.
Okay, here we go. Audience, how's everybody doing today? Good?
Great.
Awesome. So before we start and do proper introductions to our panel, I'm going to give by a show of hands here in the audience. By the way, I'm Chris Lafayette, as just announced, founder of the Armada, working on massive green screen studios here in Silicon Valley, advising startup companies, corporations, dealing in diversity and inclusion, all that kind of good stuff. Global leader for immersive technology along with all of you. Before we start, let's get by a show of hands. Who here is familiar with VR and AR technology? Raise your hand. And who is not? It's okay. Raise your hands. Good. So our panel knows what we're dealing with of who's in the audience. And what I'm going to do is go person to person. And I want you guys to tell us who you are, what you do, and what you're about, and how are you driving immersive technology. And let's start with Maddie down there from Boost VC.
Hello, my name is Maddie Callender. I am Director of Operations at Boost VC. We are focused on investing in early stage startups in VR and AR. So we have a 3-month accelerator program in San Mateo, and we bring companies in and provide both a network, a community, and time in Silicon Valley to be able to build and grow your company.
Hi, I'm Mayan. I'm a product manager at Meta. Meta is an augmented reality company. We do both the hardware and the software. I saw that there is a demo outside, so if you haven't tried it yet, you are welcome to try. I've been at Meta for 2 years. I started as a UX and UI researcher and recently transitioned into product.
Hi, I'm Lucas Risotto. I'm a creative technologist, so I make stuff that I think is cool with VR and AR. And the latest of which was called Where Thoughts Go, which is an immersive social narrative where human thoughts exist as these thinking creatures, which you can wake up to listen to stories left by other participants. And to move forward in the narrative, you need to create creatures yourself, leave your own story by talking to it and leave it behind. And we premiered 2 weeks ago at the Tribeca Film Festival, and we accidentally created a new form of psychotherapy. Which is one of the cool things about VR, just innovation just happens by accident. And yeah, we have a demo running on the back as well if you want to try it.
Hi everyone, my name is Pearly. Great to see you all this afternoon. I am Chief of Staff to the CEO and Chairwoman at HTC. Vive is our most recent awesome endeavor in pushing forward the vision of unleashing human imagination. We believe we can do that by converging technology and best of what makes us human, then converging a lot of the new exciting technology trends that we're seeing today, not limited to VR, AR, but in the near horizon, AI and 5G coming, and other emerging technologies as well. We'll have the ability to unleash human imagination from the limitations of reality. How we're doing that is obviously building the world's most loved VR technology, Vive, as well as investing in content, in marketplace platform, as well as directly investing in companies. We are also trying to bring VR to more people around the world by working with museums, for example, in a program called Vive Arts, and working with enterprises in helping them understand how to use VR, AR, and immersive technologies to make their workforce more productive. Looking forward to discuss more with this audience.
Awesome. So let's go back to Maddie. Maddie, what's going on with Boost VC? So we know that you guys dealt heavily in cryptocurrency. Audience, show of hands, who knows what cryptocurrency is? Okay, cool. We're familiar with money, right? So now we're dealing. So, Maddie, how does that happen? You guys are dealing in cryptocurrency, heavy in Bitcoin, across the board. All of a sudden, we find ourselves going into immersive technology with what you guys do. How does that happen? Give us a little history on that.
Yeah, so when we first got started, we were an accelerator for all startups. Very quickly, we found our niche in Bitcoin cryptocurrency and decided to turn the accelerator into an actual Bitcoin accelerator. This was about 4 years ago now. About 2.5, 3 years ago, after a couple of cohorts of all Bitcoin, Ethereum companies, we started investing in VR. And basically what we realized we had done was we were able to build networks in the Bitcoin industry, and we saw how valuable that network was between all of our companies, between all of our founders, between all of the mentors, investors, and people in the industry that were interested in Bitcoin. They all came together under our roof, and we were able to provide that to companies that were getting started in the space. And we realized we could do that for virtual reality as well. And this was before the Vive had released, the Oculus released. We started investing in VR about 2.5, 3 years ago now, and have made about 70 investments in the VR space.
Per annum, how many startups are you funding?
Approximately about 50 companies a year we invest.
And what type of content, what are they doing? More on the hardware side of things or software?
More on the software side. It's a lot of tools for creating content. We don't traditionally invest in content creators, although Lucas is an exception. And as a psychotherapist potential platform. Yeah, we're really looking at the infrastructure for what is going to be needed to build the market, to get more people into headsets, to be able to create content more easily, and to be able to provide tools and resources for engineers and people interested in building in VR, bringing them into the space and funding the creators behind those platforms.
Awesome. Pearlie, we're going to jump into you since we're talking about investments. We know you know something about that, dealing with HTC. Some say HTC Vive is leading the world and leading the pack right now when it comes to immersive technology. They're driving very heavy with their HMD, their head-mounted display systems. They've got a lot of startups under their belt. They have alliances with major platforms around the world, and including here domestically in Silicon Valley. Let's talk about it. Startups, what are you guys looking for? What do you guys look for when it says, okay, we want to fund these people versus those people?
So we're talking about ViveX here, which is HTC's $100 million accelerator fund that we started about 2 years ago. Our good friend TP Tap from the VR Fund is here. We look at many deals together. We have co-investments too. So since this is a really infancy stage of a computing paradigm shift that will take some time to really unfold to I would say, billion units kind of mass adoption, we are really looking for pain point solvers, ecosystem boosters, things that a company is working on can have that multiplying effect that can help 10,000, 100,000 other companies. So what comes with that is a lot of infrastructure, tools, services, as well as foundational tech and innovative applications of this technology in different verticals, say enterprise, in learning, in education, as well as more general human-computer interface, like brain-computer interface or gesture or haptics. We've really casted a wide net in the past 2 years. We invested in 85 companies globally, and we're continuing to invest. So as I said, we're taking the philosophy of a rising tide lifts all boats. So we are looking for the sort of brightest and most innovative application of this technology. Founders that are dreamers, really sort of inspiring the industry and how to use this technology, moving us forward.
Lucas, as an entrepreneur on the other side of things, obviously if you're an entrepreneur, you're pretty much not a VC. On the other side of things, you're probably our only entrepreneur that we have here that's in the startup phase. What is it like to start a startup in immersive technology today?
I think you realize pretty quickly that no one knows what they're doing.
I think you're right.
Yeah,
I think most of us will agree with that.
Yeah, everyone has a dream and everyone has something they're shooting towards. But at least in Boost, where you get to spend several months in a basement with several other VR creators, you get to see their process and the things they're dealing with, how they're solving issues, and it's everyone is dealing with the same unknowns. No one knows when VR is going to take off, but we know it will. So it's just a matter of like we're waiting to see the results of each device and finding out which platforms we should support. And I guess that has been like one of the key things. And it actually, I found it was kind of empowering, which really means that it's really all about just being part of that community and talking to other people in the industry and figuring out problems together, because it's really, that's one of the key things that I'm thankful for at Boost, is that I got to have that community instead of just doing things alone in isolation. That's been extremely helpful.
Talking about that, so it seems like a lot of startups here in immersive technology are on a fact-finding mission when it comes to immersive technology. I have a question for the audience. How many of you have some type of immersive hardware platform that you use at home or at the office? By show of hands. How many of you here use it every single week? Okay, that's interesting. Mayan, you are part of one of those massive hardware juggernauts here in immersive technology with Meta. Two questions for you. What's Meta looking to do the next 12 to 24 months, and how soon can we expect an untethered system?
That's a question everyone wants to know. I don't know how much I can talk about because we haven't exposed anything yet, so I can't talk about it too much. We are working on a couple of different products, but we're going to ship sometime next year, and I can't say more.
Well, let's dive into this. Here's what you probably can tell you, given that you're in such a unique position as a project manager for Meta. And I'm going to relay this to the panel. Sorry, Lucas, you're going to might be excluded from this one. You're a minority up here, and so am I, so we stick together. I'm with you, bro. So, ladies, women, a lot has been happening in Silicon Valley in the narrative of diversity and inclusion. In the spirit of this event, we are touching on some of these things that we're dealing with. What is the experience in mind? We'll start with you. What is the experience working in Silicon Valley as a woman, and is there any obstacles that you feel that have kept you from success?
Okay, so I'll start from the end. Nothing has stopped me.
Well said.
The obstacles, there are plenty. I can only talk from my experience. Meta is the only company that I've worked for in the Silicon Valley. So I don't know how it is in other companies because I haven't experienced it. I know that we don't have enough women, that we are fighting to get more women. It's really difficult, and we're doing so much to try and get more women on board. We have women-only open houses. We've invited like women in tech. I've created a mini conference of like women in US and invited them in for a workshop. We've tried a lot to get more women in, and still that there are not enough. And I feel it every day.
Sure. Maddie, limited technology. I know you know something about this.
Yeah.
What's going on?
So we see a lot of our deal flow through applications. So a part of the numbers that I get a chance to look at is how many applications do we get from teams with female founders versus teams of all male founders. And obviously the ratio is much, much lower for teams with female founders. And a part of the way that I try to counteract that is I try to push more of the teams with female founders to interviews, because I want to make sure that we're giving them the very most due diligence we can possibly get to be able to make sure that we're not missing any opportunities. But it's a really difficult thing to try to solve. I've found that I have female founder office hours on Tuesdays, so as people reach out to me, people can just sign up and book 20 minutes with me. There's a lot more mentoring I find that goes into the startups that we eventually invest in with female founders. And I love that. I think it's a really important piece because I feel like there's a little bit of a confidence hurdle. No offense to the men in the audience, but men are just dumber and much more willing to start companies a lot faster than women are. It's a really risky thing to go out and start something by yourself, to show up somewhere and say, hey, like, I want to build this. You need to trust in me and you need to give me money to build this. Like, that's a very like stupid thing to do.
What's the ratio approach for Boost VC when it comes to the approach of saying we have a startup versus female versus male founder?
Ask the question again?
What's the ratio that you see coming your way when it comes to potential startups that you're going to fund versus male to female ratio?
I mean, it's very low. Like, see, probably 20% are from female founders. I think our portfolio is right around that same amount.
Sure. Do you guys feel like you're doing enough right now when it comes to getting women?
I am trying.
Got it.
I'm trying a lot. We are just by trying to show up and basically plant the flag and the stake in the ground that says women in science fiction technology making sci-fi a reality is our thesis. So whether it's the future of currency, the future of computing, the future of automated technology or artificial intelligence, we're trying to be a beacon of like any wild idea should come to us, and we should be able to provide some sort of help or mentoring or education or investment to you in that process.
So a lot of talk that's been happening around Silicon Valley as late is on the subject of diversity and inclusion is that diversity is a revenue driver. I know that some of the things that we deal with at our postmodern apprenticeship and that we talk a bit about every single day. And for startup companies and its major emergent platform of immersive technology, it's huge to see what the narrative is looking like when we start talking about diversity and inclusion, especially when it comes to that culture and it comes to the development of this technology being built, because our consumption levels, if we look at who's consuming our products, it's diverse. On that note, Pearly, HCC Vive, leader of the pack, what does diversity and inclusion look like with HCC?
I have the sentiment this is a broader issue that not any one of us can solve alone, or
Sure.
we can solve in maybe for another few generations' time to be quite realistic. And it's not just about technology. I came from investment banking industry prior to joining technology. It was the same there. It's the same in entertainment, same in law, same in music industry. It is a global phenomenon. It's a matter of mainstreaming and having people acknowledge the challenges facing professional women or women trying to get more ambitious with their career goals, and men being equal partners in that journey. And the mainstreaming of these conversations have been extremely helpful in marching us forward in that direction. I echo the sentiment that we all try. At HCC, we have a woman CEO. She's the founder of the company. Given that, we still don't have enough women, especially in the engineering division, and that comes from a pipeline issue. That comes from maybe in general, the sort of working culture in the engineering environment. But you would see that in the relatively larger company like ours, the gender ratio is roughly half and half in the sort of entry level. But the leaky pipeline is obviously an issue facing any industry as you go upwards to managerial, executive, and board level. The percentages shrinks, right, tremendously. I'm trying very hard too in trying to invest in more women founders in this space, but I would say less than 20% or maybe 10% of applications I see, maybe 900 to 100
Sure.
that I see are women founders.
So seeing that you're chief of staff of HCC, let's add this in. What do you say to the inspiring female founders that Matt is talking about, that she's worked so desperately to work with, mentor? What do you say to them? You've risen up in the ranks. It's remarkable the steps that you've taken. What do you say to them? What's the inspiration point that you give to them? How do they win?
That's a really, really raw question, but
It is raw.
general, right?
This is Stanford, right?
Right, in general, I think not just a confidence issue, but really it is the entire community and society. Realizing that women and men are not one against each other, and are not sharing it's not a zero-sum game. Together, partnering together, we can enlarge the prosperity for everyone, and that's been proven by the financial RMR results of companies having more diverse workforce, diversity of thoughts, putting into the innovation process, not just gender diversity, but other areas of diversity as well. So we should just all really be more cognizant of that. And being women, I don't believe anything is really stopping us, right? We are just biologically prone to more responsibilities, and being a mother of of two, right? I can understand very well how men can more easily leave kids behind and go pursue their dreams and passions, whereas where I am globe-trotting, being a technology executive, I'm constantly thinking of my kids, and my sort of responsibility with the kids are just naturally more. And just being sort of cognizant of that and acknowledging that and sort of asking for help when needed, and it's not just in the household, but also in the work environment, helping to foster a culture that is family-friendly enough, that is not, that does not suffer from unconscious bias of the expectations given to women and men. Speaking when necessary, often it is necessary, and with the mainstream of the conversation recently, it's, I think, foster a better environment for all of us to play a bigger share of the voice.
Maddie, what do you have on that?
Can I add one more thing?
Sure.
I think in the last 2 weeks, there's been a huge kind of movement towards female founders that I'm super excited about, which is the raising of a couple of new funds in the space that are dedicated towards female founders. The Female Founders Fund, the Backstage Capital Fund that was just raised, WXR Fund. Like, you have a bunch of institutional money from LP side of it saying, like, we think this is valuable, and that's like the first step, is all these big institutional investors or larger corporations saying, like, women and female founders have a voice and should be heard as new technology is being created. And so I think that's like a huge kind of matchstick moment right now, where there's like a fire being lit behind these institutional investors to put money where their mouth is in their companies or what's happening. So I think we're in a really exciting time for the next just moving forward, where you have investors that are solely looking at female founders, teams with women, as in leadership, and realizing that there's a huge opportunity and actually a huge financial opportunity for tremendous gains to be backing the teams in this space.
Lucas, let's go back to you. Let's jump you in this. So you've heard what's been shared so far. You are a content creator. You are an entrepreneur. From your perspective, let's give it to 1, 2. So based on what's been said, give us some thoughts on that and some of your sentiments of your experience. And then 2, with what you do, is diversity and inclusion important in your line of work?
So just adding to the thing that I said at the beginning, it's like one of the cool things about VR and AR in general is that because it's so new, it's a level playing field, which means that it doesn't take, there's no huge players that dominate the space, at least from the softer side of things. This means that the people who are doing work right now, these are the people that will define some of these people will define what the future of 3D computing looks like. And by association, what the human experience looks like and what social interactions look like. And that's a big deal. And you don't want one single group to monopolize what that future looks like. Or you don't want one single group making all those calls. So I think one of the beautiful things about VR and AR is how interdisciplinary it is. So it's not just about tech, like with VR. You need to understand architecture and neuroscience and storytelling and UI UX design. It's just there's so many things and it's so complex, which means that even people who are not in technology can find a way to get here and help shape what that future looks like. And I have been lucky enough that most of my collaborators over the past year have been women. And it's been pretty great for me. Mostly I think it's I don't know if it's a network issue. There's obviously decades of we got into the current situation because of decades of problems, and but really what I want is that for the future I want the future of 3D computing to be built by as many diverse people as possible, not only technology, but from all walks of life and from all backgrounds.
Sure.
What was the second question?
How does your work dive in and delve into dealing with diversity and inclusion?
Yeah.
What's the importance of it?
Yes.
Because we're talking about content creation for the audience. And when we're talking about content creation, we have to understand that these immersive experiences, when you're putting on a head-mounted display, it's going to be a variety of different people that use this, right? Instead of content creation, we have to think not from our own experiences, but empathy towards other audiences that are buying and consuming our product. So as you, as a content creator, Lucas, I know you've done some amazing things. You just got back from Tribeca. What's it about?
So with Where Thoughts Go, it's an experience that's all about exploring the minds of other people. And the more diverse the audience, the more interesting the content becomes. So it makes everything more interesting. Initially in the first couple months of testing, everyone was 20 to 30 years old because it was just like people in our initial social circles. But once we started to expand that and get 8-year-olds to play and get like 80-year-olds to try it out, and we just got this like wide breadth of content, and these people bringing in their backgrounds and their experiences and their dreams when they were kids and all these things, it just made the experience that much, it just added that much texture and to the whole thing. So it's like diversity is really, it's what defines whether our content's going to be more engaging or less engaging, so it's a huge deal.
Mayan, let me jump over to Mayan real quick. So on that subject with Meta and creating content, what's Meta's approach to diversity when it comes to Voting for All?
I think it's a strange question because it's like asking about are computers for like yes,
Sure.
of course it's for technology is not gender based or shouldn't be gender based or color based or yeah, so of course it should be for and what we're trying to do is like the whole goal for Meta is to create a seamless interaction between human and machine. Human, not male, female.
Maddie, USVC, where are you guys headed? What's this year look like?
Yeah, so we are 5 years old, a little over 5 years old, and we have a portfolio of over 250 companies. And so a lot of what we're focusing in on is how do we support our portfolio and really build out tools and resources to help our companies continue to grow and connect with each other, connect with our network. We're looking at deals in the VR, AR space. I think we'll probably explore AR a little bit more as we see these headsets being launched, things starting to evolve in AR. And
Why AR over VR? I mean, right now
we're
big
very heavily
competition.
VR.
Sure. Okay.
I think VR and AR are all going to have an impact on every industry that we can think of in the long run. So to your kind of diversity conversation, there's also tremendous opportunity for people from healthcare backgrounds, from education backgrounds, from science and math to everyone to get involved in these industries in some form or fashion. And so figuring out why VR or AR, what problems VR and AR solve right now, today, as the momentum, as the tool to get momentum into the VR and AR industries. Because I think with something like Where Thoughts Go, that's something you couldn't have done before VR. There was no room I could walk into and have a therapeutic conversation and leave like beautiful thoughts behind it. This is something you couldn't do. So what in the spaces right now can't be done without VR or AR, and those I think are the things that are going to start to lead the way. And we'll see the industry grow, we'll see more jobs, we'll see more founders coming into the space building unique things.
So Pearlie, in the market, let's talk about the market, let's talk about competition in VR versus AR. Do you see augmented reality as Vive as VR? Is AR considered a threat?
No, I see them as one continuum. VR, AR is about a continuum of how much you've covered yourself from reality. When you're fully immersive, you're fully VR. When you are fully transparent and overlay those information in your real world, like our devices have been designed from day one with camera in front, that's AR. And in between, it can be in different combinations. In the future, when the form factor is much more wearable, much more comfortable, when a lot of the processing power gets offloaded to the cloud and versus device-based, VR and AR can be one device. And you can walk outside of this room and use fully AR, be in this room and go somewhere, be fully immersive, and depending on use cases, AI will power the device to come in different combinations to show you the most optimal performance for that particular experience. So definitely don't see AR as competition. Don't currently see phone-based applications as necessarily the real AR. It's augmented your camera of your phone, of your smartphone, not necessarily augmenting your experience. But it will come. As far as content creation goes, they're all built with similar 3D engines. So a lot of the content being built today can easily go cross-platform on AR, AR Kit, on AR devices, on Vive devices, as well as web and mobile. So this is definitely a huge sort of
At this time, we're going to open up for audience questions. When you do ask your question, we ask that you state your name and feel free to sit from where you're at. And who wants to ask a question for our illustrious panel? Clarama.
Oh, well, that's my name.
Sorry.
No, it's good.
Go for it.
I wanted to ask, so you said that you see like 20% of female founders are applying. And I was wondering if you saw also common mistakes that's specific to female founders that are making it in their applications, or do you think like they're not making any mistakes at all, it's just something that are applying and for some reason that's why the numbers are low, or do you see like mistakes happening even post once they get the interview that might continue like with why it might be harder to get them happy into their program? Does that make sense?
Is that directed to Pearlie, Maddie?
To anyone who in that space that can answer that. Yeah. I'd love to hear different perspectives on it.
I think it's commonly understood that as far as sort of candidacy goes, women often feel like they need to overachieve to be able to consider, whereas men often project themselves sort of fitting into that role or vacancy more naturally, and that sort of translates into the amount of women founders that apply, I think. And also, that's one dimension, but also I've seen anecdotally a lot of women building great things in VR, but those building it just seems like not enough come through my pipeline, and I'm really trying to reach out to try to reach more. And when I do meet exciting companies with good female founders, I do everything I can to permission to come in. So I'm not sure I have a very clear answer to that.
There is also a lot of research that shows that women are more scrutinized than males, so that could definitely their need to overcompensate is as more reactionary because they've been told that once they get this high, they need to get a little bit higher. And I was wondering if that's been controlled for in your guys' processes, and if that is, then okay.
Yeah. So we don't look at gender until later in the application, so that you are basically blind to like names and gender. When you're looking at the application, you're looking at the team, the background, the reason why they're building it, what the product is, their market, their vision, like the statements that they put together, the video. Eventually, when we watch the video, we'll see their faces and be able to like have a better understanding of like who the team is. But first pass, it's all just based on the application.
And you're not seeing any common errors.
I do see some common errors, but I have like, I honestly have, I reach out and I share it. Like I've done a lot of feedback for the applications because I think it's really important that they try again or look at other accelerators, like look at other places to apply, because if they're working on something that's interesting, it's really important for them to keep going. Like I don't want this to stop anyone if they're not accepted.
How long do those relationships last with those that do get funded by VC? As far as the relationship that you have with the companies that you fund, are we looking lifetime with the company? What does it look like?
Yeah, so I mean, we're traditional venture capital investors, so we're lifetime investors in your company. So we try to maintain our relationships with companies as long as they're still alive and functioning as an entity.
I know the relationships that I often deal with when I'm here startups I'll get to in just a second, is that sometimes, when you're dealing with the venture capitalists and you're dealing with those that they fund, how does Boost VC, and I think this is really apropos and important, how does Boost VC set themselves apart from other venture capitalists? Because venture capitalists, some people say a VC is a VC is a VC. I think Boost VC, from the reputation
I
that
would
they've
say
earned,
that's not true. Like a VC is a VC is a VC is not necessarily true.
I agree. So what sets you guys apart? That you can share with us, please.
So I think one thing that we really try to do is be very familial. Like part of living and working, housing and office space in San Mateo is a huge part of it. We're trying to build a community. Like basically, we don't know if all of the teams that we're investing in are going to be the winners in the VR space, but we know that they're incredible technologists. We know that they're smart and they're working on a problem that they're driven to solve. And by bringing them all together, we know that we're building a community of founders and technologists that are going to go on to do really great things. And maybe their first startup doesn't work, but we want to be their first call on the second startup. Like this is a long-term game to building relationships with humans. Like that's what makes us different.
Awesome.
Can I touch on that real quick? Just from the perspective of a Boost company. The really great thing about the VR focus this is that resources translate between companies really easily. So if one of the companies in your tribe actually manages to get contact or access to something interesting, it cascades down to all of the other VR companies. And that's been really interesting to see. And even if some of the projects don't go well, I feel like I've met people that I would be founders with 5 years from now.
Do you feel like you're getting enough support? Be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's really like you have to ask for support. But when you ask, I haven't been denied support ever.
Strong. We have a question from the audience in the back. Yes,
I'm coming from Europe.
what's your name?
Sorry, my name is Mareike. So in English, Mareike, Marika, whatever. So I have a question. Coming from Europe, like the subject of psychotherapy has a rich, long history, right? Like Sigmund Freud, Jung, and people like that. And they used a long time to develop something like a new or like psychotherapy. So my question now would be, we're talking about a very young technology here, and we don't really know what's happening with this. So I was quite puzzled by you saying, oh, we just invented by coincidence a new kind of psychotherapy, whereas there are people who like were working for long years on something like that. So my question would be I have two questions. One is for the inventor. Are you not a little bit worried about bringing up something that big, like we invented a new psychotherapy, by not really knowing which impact it will have on people, where we not even know which kind of impact the technology will have on people? And the second thing would be, isn't the danger of being funded that things have to monetize lead to the situation that very easy some label gets like basically put on something? So, oh yeah, this can be used for psychotherapy. It's something we haven't got yet in VR. We really need to use that. So these would be my two questions.
Sure.
I see some dangers there. I'm sorry to say that, but yeah, I would really like to know what
We've talked about those dangers.
Oh, yeah,
Let's talk about the dangers.
Yeah, we weren't funded as a mental health platform by any means, actually. Right now we are a storytelling piece that's going to release later this month. And we noticed that as we were trying it out, we got some very consistent feedback, the therapeutic value of this. And then we started showing it to some psychologists, and people started to get excited about it. And we're going to we're going to be getting research going, and we're not going to be selling this as a mental health application at all until we're absolutely sure what is happening. But we can say with a fair degree of certainty that something is happening. And there's the experience we built apply a bunch of really old psychological principles, and basically there's something happening. It is not our product right now. It is not what we're selling, but I think it's by doing virtual reality art, you can stumble upon innovations just by approaching the medium from new, unique angles. And then people start telling you, like, oh, you could use this for that. And I keep listening, and they have been telling us, several people have told us that we should be looking to the mental health space. So that's what we're doing, but we're not going to be using it until we know what's happening. I absolutely agree with you there.
That's a big subject. So that's a big subject. We're talking about health and wellness, right? And PTSD. Maya, is there anything that Meta is working in that arena when it comes to, let's say, medtech? You know, a lot of people, when they think about VR, AR, games, right? Games are fun, games are cool. I'm not a huge fan of that narrative when it comes to expressing our industry or what we do, because we do much more than games. So for Maya and Pearly, Maya will start with you first. Is there anything that you know of that Meta, or that you can share with us that Meta has tackled or is working with when it comes to medical technology in the university?
Okay, so first of all, I think the question was very, very interesting. And this is something that we talk about a lot, and we actually had the first stab at creating these spatial interface guidelines, which also try to talk about that as well, about the dangers and of creating this kind of immersive reality, which might be confusing to some people, and what is real to everything. Every action has a counteraction. Every virus has an antivirus. So I think we need to trust, to put trust in people. That for sure some people will use it for the worst, but we need to trust that people will also do good things with it. And at Meta we are concentrating on productivity for that reason.
Awesome. Thank you. Pearlie.
I think we see ourselves as very fortunate to be in a position to create these new technologies that will go into people's hands. So what comes with it is really our sense of responsibility of how we create this technology, what applications they're used for. As I was just discussing with Ben last night at dinner, at night you can use it to enjoy a beautiful meal, you can use it to kill, right? So the sense of responsibility, how we enable the ecosystem is very important. That's why since day one we've been investing in actually a lot of medtech applications of virtual reality, including a company called Surgical Theater that can translate thousands of MRI and CT scans into a virtual 3D environment for the neurosurgeon, to walk into the patient's brain, to familiarize himself, to practice a critical surgery prior to the operation. And that just creates a new kind of medium of communication to the patient as well, in understanding what tremendous process the families and the patients are going through. So that has quite a significant sort of impact and touch of humanity in a way that we didn't sort of initially imagine could be possible.
Are you seeing content created by health practitioners and doctors alike?
Well, this is a specific solution created for doctors and physicians to use. Instead of trying to understand how to conduct a surgery by overlaying a lot of MRI and 2D images, they now get to create that environment, walk into that environment.
Are the doctors working with you guys?
Yes.
Okay.
There are other applications like stroke rehab, as well as operating room imaging visualization systems, as well as creation tools to design drugs. So there are plenty of applications in these spaces that we're very interested in investing.
Maddie, USVC, MedTech.
MedTech. Just to the point earlier around investing, I guess, we have a set of internal core values of what we believe and what we want the world to look like. And so we invest around that principle. And when we're looking at different deals and we're looking at different opportunities, there are opportunities that could be potentially very dangerous. And maybe they're great monetarily opportunities, but they're not necessarily opportunities that we could get behind as core values and principles. So I think that that's something to just keep in mind, that as investors, we are human, we have values, we try to use that as we make decisions in investing. And then around the medtech space, I think that there's a tremendous opportunity to evolve healthcare to be much more individualized. There's a lot of, as we see the 23andMe's, where you're really getting into the genetic code, there's a lot more opportunity to actually really understand the surgery, as Pearlie was talking about, to understand the training and rehabilitation side. There's a couple of companies in the space that are doing some really incredible stuff around rehabilitation and what types of movements are actually tailored to your physical surgery and what you needed. And there's some crazy stats around the waiting list to get into a physical therapist at most of these hospital systems is incredibly long. So what if we could start the very small movements using VR in your own home, where it's a tiny movement that you need to start practicing now instead of waiting to get into a hospital rehab facility to be able to start that rehabilitation. So I think there's tremendous opportunities to continue to augment the medical system in the space.
Wonderful. And on that note, we'd like to thank Stanford, thank the Rabbit team for providing our illustrious panel to give us what they got. Audience, can we please give a round of applause? And thank you, everyone, and look forward to seeing you in the metaverse.